Hey friends, Ari Koinuma here. Thanks for tuning in. So for today's Deep Thoughts Thursday episode, I wanted to share with you my thoughts on two finite resources that we have. They are not exactly the same thing, but they're related. One is life energy, the other one is willpower. So if you understand how these two resources work, it helps you assess in terms of how am I spending my life, and then how am I spending my day, and how am I spending my day to serve how I'm spending my life, and together that can give you sort of a assessment and decision making framework, so to speak. Okay, all right, let's go. Okay, so let's look at life energy first, and let's imagine that you are born with a flask or bucket full of life energy filled to the brim when you're born, and then the longer you live, you're spending your life energy, so it's getting sort of scooped out, right? And then it becomes lower and lower, and then we die when we are out of life energy. And so this is sort of an inevitable course of life. Obviously we all have finite amount and it is not renewable, although I would argue that the rate of it going out increases with certain conditions, things like stress, right, or amount of emotional baggage that you're carrying that takes more energy just to sustain yourself. Baggage, right? Any other strain. Obviously, illness, financial strain, relationship strain, anything. Well, I guess it really just all comes down to stress. No matter what, it is going out at a particular rate, but it goes out faster when you have these things. And then you can slow down the rate and possibly even replenish a little bit if you have things like joy, right? If you have purpose, and then if you have rest or healing, and things like sleep going there, good food going here, nutrition, exercise, purpose can incorporate passion, good relationship, obviously, just any sort of fulfillment, right? Just self-actualization. These are the elements that can slow down the outpouring of life energy and possibly replenish a little. So, this going down is an inevitable thing. I mean, we cannot fight the life energy eventually getting drained, but you can affect the rate at which it's draining. And you can kind of tell how a person's life energy is being spent by looking at people who are this is totally subjective, but 30s, maybe 40s and up, and just kind of seeing how we age. And you obviously, there's a lot of factors in there, but not just in terms of outward appearance, but if you look at sort of a person's exuberance or youthfulness in good ways, radiance, you can kind of tell like how that person's life energy is being spent, as opposed to people who unfortunately might feel really jaded or hopeless, or just defeated, purposeless. These are conditions at which, again, unfortunately, you can kind of observe that life energy is getting spent. Alright, now let's switch gear to the willpower. The willpower is obviously kind of I will draw it much smaller, right? So you have a container for the willpower, and then it's filled to the brim. But willpower is something that is also finite in that researcher done Ari has conducted experiments to say that like after you insert your will to some extent, you run out of the willpower it becomes more and more difficult to will yourself to take actions that might be difficult or challenging. So knowing this helps you figure out, okay, so in my day, what kind of actions do you want to take, and how would that serve in terms of, the kind of things that will actually contribute to my life energy being well spent. So willpower here, every time you take actions to make choices that are more challenging or heavier or things that you don't really want to do, you're spending your willpower. And to replenish it, you basically sleep, like a nightly sleep will reset it, right? Or taking a nap might reset it. Again, same kind of thing where like good food, snack, exercise, these things can kind of help replenish the willpower to some extent, or to slow down the spent of the willpower. And along the same lines, I do also think it's kind of possible to increase the willpower's capacity can increase if you can probably get in the habit of making good decisions, sort of building systems and habits that will maybe help you build certain patterns so that you're not spending a lot of willpower, and or if you challenge yourself to continue to make changes, or not changes, but decisions that sort of require willpower, and if you become more confident about how you can will yourself, how you can control yourself, your own behavior, I can also see that your capacity for willpower might even increase. That would be an interesting experiment for another time. But anyway, so willpower is a finite resource. If you keep making decisions that are difficult, or make yourself do things that are require willpower, then you eventually run out, and then towards the end of the day, you become more lax, you veg out more, you might not be able to uphold yourself to your standard quite as well. So how the two relate now is that all these things that sounds good on the sort of the replenishing and or slowing side of life energy, unfortunately they all require willpower. Stephen Pressfield in his book called War of Art talks about the idea of resistance, and his thesis is that anything that's really worthwhile in life, actually you feel a certain resistance doing them, and he's just it was just his personal experience, but it's an idea that deeply resonates with me in that for some reason anything that is really worth doing, anything that gets you going in the right direction, the choice is always seems to be between what is easy and what is worthy, and what is worthy takes more willpower. So if the willpower is a finite resource, but if you want to use your willpower wisely to do the activities that will then contribute to your life energy's expenditure, then naturally you might want to kind of front load, for example, your decisions about what to do with your each day to contribute toward these worthy activities, so that you are expending your willpower to maximize your life energy. Now that might sound like a cause for campaigning that morning people are better, Um, which I'm not as necessarily a morning person myself, and many artistic people aren't necessarily. So I'm not gonna quite go that way. But that being said, I definitely think there is value in just thinking about how you wake up in the morning. Hopefully you have decent sleep, and when you start out, that's when you have the most willpower available for you, and you want to spend it wisely to make sure that you are spending your life wisely, knowing that, again, fulfilling activities, worthy activities, require willpower. Now, many of us, unfortunately, are not sort of in a position to be able to really even think about this kind of positive usage of willpower, because the willpower is entirely being spent managing the draining side of life energy in that. And I used to be definitely one of them, right? Life was so stressful, there was so much baggage, there's tons of strain from day to day, and you're just kind of in the survival mode. All your willpower is basically being spent to manage this part. And this is not a judgment to you at all. In fact, my heart goes out to you. I mean, I definitely used to be one of them, and who knows, maybe it will happen again, although I intend not to. There is no magic bullet in terms of how do you turn this around. So instead of you spending your willpower day to day on managing your negative side, and from to a place where you can start to expend it on the positive side. But I would say that if you start, for example, if you're a grown up, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and start feeling like parts of your body are starting to feel a little weird, or if there are any sort of unexplainable sort of physical symptoms, whether it's digestive issues, sleep issues, migraine. I mean, those are signs that, in my opinion, these things are contributing and then really rapidly draining your life energy. So, and this is definitely a finite thing. The lower it goes, and I don't know exactly how to put an analogy. Maybe the way that it's draining is uneven, and then the more uneven this is going, perhaps you develop certain kind of illness out of that, and that can accelerate the vicious cycle in the wrong way even more. And I mean, we all know, right? I mean, there's nothing revolutionary to say that if you're stressed all the time, or if you're strained, you will not, have a good life, and you might not live long. So this is a serious thing, and while you're stuck in that survival mode, all you might think about is how to, use your willpower to again manage and reduce this, but that might still be an effort to sort of just barely slow down this sort of undesirable expending of life energy. And I myself went through what I call midlife crisis, right? If you are just, on the managing side of spending life energy, you might have to make some big decisions at some point and say, you know what, I really need to dramatically reduce some of these things so that I can start to use my willpower, my finite willpower, day-to-day willpower, to activities and lifestyle, and create situations where you can have these elements that will spend your life energy more wisely. I can tell you that from the time when I was in those situations, I just kept thinking that I'm still a good person for sort of enduring the strain and for suffering And in some ways, I glorify the suffering by saying, hey, I'm giving so much, therefore I am a good person, right? And I deserve to exist. And it went through, so, it requires some crisis situation for me to get to a bottom, at least, with certain situations where I'm like, I cannot be in this situation anymore. I cannot stay here. It's really hurting me in a way that obviously it's not serving me and it's not serving anybody else. So I can totally relate, and my heart goes out to everybody who is in that crisis prevention survival mode. I would say though that life energy is definitely a finite thing, and at my age, obviously I'm starting to hear about people who may not have lived as long as they could have. Or if I think about my father, he passed away when he was 61, so that's like 15 years from now for me, right? It just life goes by, and how do you spend that life? Do you want to really spend it on being strained and suffering, or do you want to spend it on being fulfilled? And if you're on this side, sometimes you might have to make some major decisions at some point to say, you know what, I need to change. And if you're in those shoes, just remember, it might feel like you're sort of serving yourself and you're prioritizing your needs over others. But just remember, if you're strained, stressed, and feeling troubled all the time, that's the kind of energy that you're putting out to the world. And is that really doing anybody a service, right? Alright, so it got a little heavy there, but I hope that you can understand where I'm coming from in terms of thinking about life energy and willpower, both as a finite resource. They are two different things, but same concepts apply, and they are related to each other. And I feel like this way of looking at life and willpower sort of puts things in perspective and helps you think about, okay, so how am I spending my life, and how am I spending my life, how am I spending my day to serve how I'm spending my life. As always, I welcome your thoughts and questions or challenges. If you think that there's a hole in this model or a dissent, I would love to hear it, so please let me know in the comments. If you think that anybody you know might benefit from understanding this, please share this video. Otherwise, thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.